Hi, welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophia, pilot into the universe of Chinese. Let's continue our February special edition talking about Chinese expressions that idealize or romanticize women. Okay, so today we're going to talk about 风华绝代.风华绝代. Okay. When we describe a woman's beauty, here use two symbols to compare it with. One is wind and flower. The other is flower. So have the wind and flower. Okay. And then 绝代, like terminated. And 代 means generation. Like this is the last generation of such beauty. And that's how rare it is. So Chinese, I guess it's exaggeration as well. To describe some beauty that's kind of outstanding to the extreme level, that means this is the you won't have another of her kind anymore, and this is the terminated generation. This is the last one. And the beauty, okay, flower we can understand, right? Because in English we do have flower used to describe a person's beauty, but wind, that's something special. Chinese pair wind and flower. So I guess in our mind, we can almost depict the flower flying in the wind. And that moment of almost like a fallen beauty was used to describe the beauty of this temporal, this heightened sense of ephemeralness of beauty. Like it won't last long. Just like Japanese cherry blossom appreciation, because it's going to fall quickly. Therefore, when it's there, you better go admire the beauty. All right, so because beauty is a natural phenomenon that's rare, and beauty in a lifetime, in a lifespan, is also rare, like a rare moment, a right moment of maturity without too much aging. I mean, this ageism, I guess, exists east and west because I guess biologically our building have that clock of when is the prime time to reproduce at least, and that reproductive power shown in the usefulness, and that's universal. Like you cannot blame that. That's how our bio works. So 风华绝代 gave you the sense of this. I'm not going to use glamorous because glamorous is man-made. It's you glam up, like you make up for that. But 风华绝代 actually is somebody's inborn qualities. That's temporary. That's like a short-lived beauty as a fallen flower, and that's the last generation. That's the whole. It's like a little poem, like a haiku in itself, in just 4 characters. Okay, wind. We have this popping of the worm out of its hidden place. Because wind is invisible, it's hard to depict wind, right? In a 2-dimensional space. So what Chinese did was indirectly depicting wind by depicting the concurrence event of when the worms come out. That's when the wind pick up. That's the season when the wind starts. So this worm comes out of its shell. This shape is the shell. And with this, I guess the fallen shells of the worm in there. And then the worm comes out. So this irregular shape is the Chinese depiction of worm. Chinese only have very few characters. That's really non-linear. It's hard to draw. Like for me, if I close my eyes, if I try to redo this worm thing, it's very difficult, right? So it's hard to reproduce, but that does give you the sense of it's the squiggly shape of the worm. And worm comes out of its hiding place. Okay, indirect wind. Hua is a direct depiction of the physical quality of the flower. The 2 trident shape paired together is a plant symbol. And a plant, oftentimes, this type of plant is not a tree. It's grown like a, I guess, plant often comes in clusters. That's why I use two of them. And two doesn't mean just two. It means many of them, not singular. Because I guess plants have to exist in an ecosystem. That's not just one is not enough to survive. You have to have a clan of them. Okay, so two of them. And then this shape, two layers, that means the petals of the flower. And this shape is the pollen pole of the flower. So the main features, the essence of the flower, with a petal to attract insects, with the pollen, to reproduce. That's the critical organ to pass down the genes, right? Those are there, plus this plant symbol. Now, the bottom is our speaking function, actually. Chinese uses speaking a lot in their character creation. Probably language creators are also sensitive to this articulation of sound. So this articulation was described by the piping of the air, the jet of air flow, and then the horizontal line is the blocker of the air. So that's the mouth, the lips, everything in the mouth chamber to produce this air compression or blockage to create all kinds of, only human producible speaking sound of all kinds of languages, right? And so this depicts that. And I guess the top horizontal line is probably either the outside world of the sound bites after coming from your pipe from inside your body, right, to the surface, which is the pronunciation organ, and comes out to the world to become a sound bite. That's the frequency, the vibration, the energy passing through the air. So it could be that and shared with this pollen pole that grow from on top of this flower base, I guess. So it's a shared symbol between the top and bottom portion of this character. And why speaking is made into this flower symbol? I guess flower, you can view it as the language of the plant. When the plant blooms, right, that sends a strong signal to the biosphere, like it's ready to, germinate or pass the pollen, ready to be pollinized, ready to be carried forward to the next soil spot to reproduce, right? So that's the language of the flower. And I guess human speaking is a language, like verbalized, articulated, human language. And that's the connection. That's my guess. That's my romanticized of what flower is about. So wind, flower, these two symbols, icons, almost like a poetry, right? Imagine I as a language user, I hear and feel, have this characters created, this image in me, just one character for each. And now when I'm doing this one word a day, I'm going deeper to the roots of what wind is made of and flower made of, like even richer cultural expectations or secret codes of the culture. The underlying code of the cultural expectations in there is even richer. And now these two icons, wind, flower, 风华, used to describe the beauty of woman. It's so fragile, it's so short-lived, yet the moment it blooms, it's like the world comes to bow in front of your beauty, right? So that's the wind flower, the 风华, and then 绝代. It's a little bit sad to see here, right? Because I think in 2022 or 2023, there were this highly socially provocative expression from China that during zero COVID years, when whoever is on the ground trying to get into the household to what's the word? to spray the germ killing powder or whatever inside somebody's private space. I mean, that's in itself is a crazy act, right? And then the household, the man in the household refused to do that. I mean, in America, it's understood, but in China, that's like, what? You want to rebel, right? And then the threat from the law enforcement, okay, let's call it a law enforcement, zero COVID law enforcement said, oh, if you refuse to do that, this is going to be kept in your record, going to be carried over to your next generation, okay, a threat for your children, because in Chinese, still like passing down your genes, have the best for your children is still like highly valued by Chinese families. Therefore, it's a highly vulnerable point for Chinese. So when you want to threat, when you want to target somebody, a threat about the danger to their, the lives of their children is probably most effective. The response from the household owner is, we're the last generation. Don't bother threaten me with my children. We are it. We're not going to reproduce. That's it. I mean, that become a socially igniting moment for, it's almost like the trend is already there because life was hard. So a lot of young people, I guess, in first world have such problem as well. Young people are not motivated to reproduce anymore. So that trend was already there, but in this highly competitive context, that last generation was still like a very jarring sound to hear. Like, wow, for Chinese, not to reproduce was the worst kind of thing you can do. Like that's the number one of 10 commandments of what not to do in a Chinese book. The number one thing is to reproduce, and not to reproduce is the thing you shouldn't never do. And, at the moment, this guy just said, we're the last generation. We're done here. Oh my God. So I just have a little bit call back to that. And that happened recently in a zero COVID year, which was last year, I guess. And then, so 绝代, that means it's terminate. It's you cut your generic lineage, basically. So this cutting actually came from this fabric making process. The left side, the two spools connected by the thread and then form this drapey image. That's the fabric symbol. And then the top here is a knife symbol. And the bottom here is somebody sitting on the heel. So I guess ancient times, the fabric making or cloth making involves a lot of, it's female. Women were the ones who carry out such domestic production activity, which is to produce fabric and clothe the whole family. And that's a lot of hunching over and bend over to work on something. And I guess in the era back then, no chair either. You have to sitting on your heels for a long time to make fabric. Just imagine that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is that person sitting on the heels, cutting the fabric or the thread. And this cut means done. That's the end of the thread or the end of the fabric. In this case, it's the end of your gene pool. Okay. That I translate as a gen, it's a generation, I didn't spell out. It has the person symbol on the left side, and then it has the weapon symbol on the right. So the weapon symbol have these two pointy things, and it shows a lot in Chinese. And my guess is it's a weapon that can be converted, interchangeable between farming tool and weaponry. And so now it depends on what context, right? In wartime weaponry, so this person plus the weapon, that means the person may die, may perish, may be killed in the battlefield, but weaponry is still there. So whoever pick up the weapon they are going to replace the original weapon user to keep going at it. So that's wartime bloody scene. And peacetime, that's that weaponry, the farming tool is going to be cross-generation passed down to, through, it's kind of like an heirloom, because the farming tool probably involves metal tips, sharp edges that can be used as a weapon, but to breaking down the soil. And that was probably not easy to make or cheap to come by. So therefore it's an heirloom piece. So when this farmer passed away, this heirloom going to pass down to the next generation. So again, this whatever hardware, either weapon or farm tool, keep going. The person change. And so that gives you the sense of humans perishable and replaced by a new generation. So this becomes a generation. Terminated, cut, degeneration. Okay, so 风华绝代 means I translated as uninheritable beauty, because beauty is a rare thing, right? It's a random occurrence. Like we all have our gene pools. Turnaround is like a lottery, right? Somebody just win a big ticket in there, inherit such great beauty. And of course, beauty is also culturally embedded. Like that person gotta be educated, raised in a way that can present themselves to like bring out the best in their natural beauty, right? Their social beauty as well, cultural beauty. And this uninheritable, that's like no matter how hard you try, like you cannot generically reproduce that person, even less to culturally reproduce that person, because what that person went through in life was irreplaceable, right? Like all of us are living in a specific time and space in a particular context. And yeah, you may clone a person, but you cannot clone that person's lifetime experience. And in that sense, like none of us are inheritable, right? And here, 风华绝代, I want to show you this show, stage performance by one of the most well-known Chinese actors or actress in the show, because her life itself was kind of legendary. She was one of the first stars, like celebrity, into the stardom in the early 80s, when China just have this Communist Party produced a bunch of propaganda, turned a little bit romanticizing, like, the grand scheme of a country thing, and then tell stories on individuals, and that individuals, if is allowed to show a little bit of a humanity, which through the not exactly dating, because it was not even in the picture, but showing by beautiful faces, acting out the storyline, that was already like a leap from the narration of what communism is about, right? It's probably equal of anything, like you're not allowed to stand out in any dimension, but she was recognized as the best face or beauty of her time. And she had this big arc of life of, became so famous, especially at a time when the film or entertainment was like non-existing, and she stood out. Then went through some drama later in life, like communism turned against her, put her in jail in the name of she evading tax. I mean, at that time, probably human like income tax for star to make such a huge amount of money is out of proportion to the tax system, I guess. So I guess there were some loopholes in there, but in any case, she was put in jail. So effectively ended her career, right? But she didn't give up. She was aging, right? But at the same time was punished in a weird way, like was the star and then all of a sudden became a prisoner. And this drama ended, I don't know how many years she spent in prison, but after she came out, she had to rebuild herself. And eventually, this is the result, the culmination of her lifetime's work on herself, as well as on this role. And the story she played is a famous Chinese, I'm not going to say prostitute, but if I translate it, it's kind of prostitute, but in the historical context, it's probably different from prostitution. It's not exactly escort either, but it's definitely a high-class woman through life fallen into like non-existing, like husband passed away, so she had to make her own life, and it was in a context of China transforming in the early 20th century. That was, the old dynasty collapsed, new regime came into power in that transitional chaotic era, and she, as an educated woman and a well brought up and came from a high ground, and then went into the survival mode in a big city. And she eventually built up the business, kind of like a entertainment house. Kind of like a burlesque, right? In the Western concept, just entertaining men using her talent and beauty. And she must be well-spoken as well. And indeed, many, many men, talented men, attracted, because a woman of such capacity was rare to come by. Even today, I guess, educated and looking good and thinking well at the same time. So it was 风华绝代, exactly to describe it. Like, this is non-copyable, un-inheritable type of beauty that's rare, you're hard to come by. So this actor was using her, like putting her life story, the legend of her life, to illustrate a woman like 100 years ago that also lived through a dramatic, turbulent time and try to navigate in that crazy time to establish her her influence and create her own legacy in a way. So 风华绝代, I guess, is well illustrated by this concept was well illustrated by the story of the two women. All right, catching to the currency, thinking about one word a day, we still see you another day.